Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk about day 2 of my practice for the regional on Santee Cooper. I'm going to kind of explain what happened towards the end of day 1 first to start this whole video off, because I can't get into day 2 without explaining this. Long story short, day 2 or day 1 of practice, I was having some voltage issues with my outboard. It was sending like 16, 17 volts to the alternator, sending 16, 17 volts back to the battery, and my voltage on my unit, as you can see here, there's a it shows you the voltage that was reading 16, 17, so a little bit too high. So I knew that was an issue, and it was coming up every like 10 to 15 minutes of running, sometimes every 5, but it was random. But as the day progressed, it would happen more and more frequently, and it got to the point where I couldn't run, like I couldn't even get on plane. The voltage would just spike, and I knew it was an issue. I knew I needed to get fixed. So that night I get back to the house. I was staying with Val Lisinski, you know, owner of Gambler Lures, and he's like, hey, last time I was here I had an issue. I took it to this place down in Monk's Corner called a Berkeley Outdoors, and they took care of me. So first thing in the morning, I wake up, I got the boat, I'm driving to Monk's Corner. Second they opened, I called them, told them I was coming. They said they could take me, and the guy Patrick there got to work immediately on my motor, and you know, he started going through a couple things. He's like, I think it's your alternator. And I talked to a buddy of mine, Dave Clark, down in Moorhaven. He usually does a lot of services and stuff for me, and you know, Dave, I was on the phone with him the day before, and I was kind of on the phone with him a little bit on Tuesday when I took the boat there, and he's like, it's probably the voltage regulator that's in the alternator. It could be this wire, it could be a bunch of things. So, you know, Pat's doing his due diligence too. But long story short, it was the alternator and the sensor wire. It took a lot of troubleshooting and a lot of steps to get to it, but we finally got it figured out. But I didn't get out of there until like 2:30 in the afternoon for a multitude of reasons. I mean, it was just going through a bunch of steps and trying to figure out different things. But eventually we got out of there. I got out of there, and I picked the closest possible ramp to where I was staying. So I don't know, I want to say Berkeley Outdoors is somewhere down here in Monk's. I don't know if you guys can see that. Just down in Monk's Corner somewhere. So I literally went to this ramp right here, right west of the Panopolis Peninsula. It's in this little creek, and granted the water was down 2 feet, so I was kind of hesitant about even putting in there. I didn't know if I'd get stuck or what the deal would be, but I said heck with it, I'm dropping the boat in. And I dropped the boat in. I had to idle out of there, and right about here I start fishing. Let me zoom out so you guys can see. So right about here I start fishing, and I'm going and I'm throwing a Gambler, and mind you, I cleared my SD card, but I was in such a rush that morning. I just forgot. I didn't bring a card, so I'm talking this whole video. But it's only about 3.5, 4 hours worth of practice, so I can break it down pretty quick for you guys. I'm going down this wall, and granted, remember my last video, I wanted to look for those riprap walls on like those damn banks, because it's a 45-degree angle. I figure if that water's fluctuating, those fish could just slide a couple feet, and you know, they would be the absolute least affected. Well, again, this dam didn't quite lay out the way I thought it would, but I'm going down it, and I'm throwing a green pumpkin burner worm on like a 3/16, just rolling it around on like 15-pound fluorocarbon. and one comes up and swipes it, and I start seeing little bass, little bluegill. Hello, dear. Bait. I'm like, okay, there's life here. That's a good sign. And then boom, I catch like a non-keeper pretty quick. I'm like, all right, cool. So I fish through here, I get that one bite in here, and I start working my way out, and I get this bite right here. Go tell nobody. I just found a deep 3.5. Oh, Panopolis Dam. Look at this grass. First cast of chatterbait too. Oh, green pumpkin too. They on them gills. Fired it out there. Catch one. 3-pounder, close, you know, 2.5. I'm like, all right, good sign. So I work my way all the way out here. Actually, right through here. I work my way through here. I mark a couple stumps, and I don't get bit. I'm like, that's weird. But the problem was, it was a lot of eelgrass. It was really high in the water column. It was just, it didn't look right. I don't like when that grass is really, really thick and topped out, and you can't, especially eelgrass, because you can't, I feel like the fish can't travel through it and live in it really well. So it just seems like whenever I get in that kind of situation, I just don't get bit. So I run. I think I sit down and idle a couple places just to look, see if there's any grass. And I believe to the mouth of the hatchery. And I start fishing, and I start noticing some ditches like leading into the hatchery, like as you can see right here. There's the hatchery. Remember we were talking about all this shallow water, all this. This may not be the ideal place where they actually want to live, but there's always going to be fish back in here. Why is that important? Well, the water dropped out 6 foot the week before. So this is marking 3 foot, this is marking 5 foot. That light green's marking like that 5 to 7 foot range. Actually, I'll go here and I'll show you guys what my color palette is. I'm on depth 2. There you go. 0 is red, 3 is yellow, light blue is teal, and 13 plus is blue. Very simple, but the way the colors also will combine in certain depth zones. Like you can see here, 6, like that yellow starts getting darker and darker, and that 7 becomes almost like a weird green, and then this becomes like a teal, and then that becomes like a blue. So it all kind of makes its own color. And when you start using these color palettes a lot, your eyes like will immediately start catching. You'll start remembering what depth is where, and if you stick to the same one, especially if you fish the same depth range a lot, this really helps. So you can see in here, this deeper water runs straight up to here, and then that secondary ditch, well, I call it the secondary ditch, but it's still part of this deep water ditch. It funnels and it swings into here, and there's a couple little holes, and from there to there, that's basically everything inside there is considered the hatchery. And then here you just got a ton of shallower water. So I was thinking, this being one of the more obvious ditches, obviously there's some ditches up here, but as you can see, I checked this one and there was no grass in here, like no grass. But the problem is, look where the hatchery is at. It's all the way in here, and this is just a long point that extends off of it, but there was no grass here. That was the biggest deal. I knew there was no grass here. The wind was hammering into here, so I knew this would get dirty, but the biggest deal is hatcheries in here, and all this stuff is out here. The next best place I could have fished was in here. I'll be honest, guys, see I dropped a stop sign there to check that out. I never came and fished this in the tournament. Same thing here. That's really ideal. A little bit far from the actual mouth of the hatchery, but there definitely could have been grass there. That one to me was this next best deal, but I never tried it. I hope this guy's not too loud. But I pull in here, and right here you can see my squiggles. This was all grass clumps all through here. Everywhere that my boat was where the grass was. And I come through here, and remember, the water's about 3 foot down at this point, so a lot of this stuff is kind of matted up. So I'm punching, flipping a burner crawl in like a 3/4 ounce, shaking it through the hydrilla, and I couldn't get any bites flipping whatsoever. But I flip in this one mat, I go to pull my bait out, and as my bait comes out, a 2-3 pounder follows it and like fades off. I'm like, okay, they want something moving. I flipped enough of this to, you know I put my bait in front of probably at least one fish, and it didn't eat inside the mat. It wanted to chase, so I put that bait down. I start throwing a chatterbait, catch one almost immediately, and then that was this mark. And then I start coming around, and I get to about right here, pick up a worm, that burner worm again, fire it out there, catch another one. I'm like, okay, it's looking good. So I start following this ditch, and right around in this area, I'm throwing a topwater spook, twitching around, and this water is really clean at this point. And I see like a 3 pounder under my spook, looking at it, but almost looked like it was about to eat it, kind of wasn't. Pull it away from it. I keep going, I'm still throwing the spook. Another one follows it, doesn't need it. I'm like, okay. I fish my way up here, nothing. Kind of work my way on the point, nothing. All the way out to deep water, nothing. So I come up here, I check this, that's why I established there was no grass. So then I doubled back, ran into about here, and up here there was like a little spillway. I was thinking maybe the mouth of the hatchery was the deal, and not as much as the contour of the deep water swing, even though there is a deep water swing coming in here. So I fish my way all through here. I come up to the spillway. There is a little bit of a deep water there, as you can see. That's probably what I went up to fish. Wasn't good. Went down this bank, was not feeling it. Fished my way out, and here's something important. You can see that shallow water where it's a lot higher there. The water is way down, and you could see stumps coming out of the water, and they almost came out and made a point right here. So I come through here, I fish, and right where that point meets this deeper water, that's BG, that means bluegill. I mean, that's all a bunch of bluegills that was coming through there. Saw some fish busting in there, had one come up on a spook, missed it, which that was kind of my final indicator that they weren't going to eat topwater, especially since we had a cold front coming up. And I'm like, if they're not eating topwater now when it's nice and windy, cloudy, you know, kind of like this, when we get a cold front, it's in the 40s at night, they're probably not going to eat the topwater. I was right. So come through here, and I catch a 2-3 pounder on a chatterbait. I'm like, awesome. So I fish my way through here, come around through here, nothing. So then at this point, it's getting late. Like, I'm going to show you the time stamp on that waypoint. 6:27 p.m. It's getting late. So I pick up, I run, and I'm like, okay, here's the deal. I got bit on this, see that dark, that brighter yellow contour? That's where I had my first bite, in 397. Well, I'm like, well, maybe there's something to this. Because down in here, remember, all this is eelgrass. And right in here, it's a lot holier. Like, there's a lot more holes and gaps where there aren't grass. There's hydrilla. And I think that might have been the biggest key, is they preferred hydrilla. So if you had a mix of hydrilla and eelgrass, you could get bit. If it was just eelgrass, could not get bit. So I come through here, throwing a green pumpkin chatterbait, bam, catch 3 pounder, or 2-3 pounder, a good one in this tournament. That tick's licked. It's the first one I've caught in this little stretch. Dude, this water's gin clear. Dave's over there. I had 6 bites over there by the mouth of the hatchery. Hell yeah. Biggest one yet. 3 3/4. So I'm like, all right, we got something. And at that point, I fished towards the dam. I fished my way back and I just idle in. And that's my second day of practice. I fished for literally, I'm gonna see what my first timestamp of my waypoint was. That's 10:11, 10:08, 3:23 p.m. So I got in the water to like 3:10. Got my first bite at 3:23. Got my last bite at, there we go. I got it backwards. So I fished my way through here and I came out here and got a bite. On my way back, I came in and I fished and caught one right there. So first bite was here, second bite was here. So I got bit on that yellow contour line earlier in the morning, or in the day at 3:30. Came back and fished through it and hit this contour line and caught one. So that told me that there was something about this darker contour line, which means it's shallower. I mean, this is deeper, then it comes up, and this is like a little high spot. This is a high spot. But for some reason, where the high spots were, maybe that allowed the hydrilla to grow more, and that the nature of the hydrilla growing with the eelgrass maybe made it a little bit holier. I can't tell you that for sure. But I kind of did the same thing. I stopped. I made sure I fished all this before. So I fished here, fished my way out, didn't get bit. On the way back, I stopped out here, fished my way in, and got bit there. So that was like the nail, that was like the light bulb moment, like, this is the deal. You didn't just get lucky earlier. They are on this contour deal for some reason. Definitely had to do with it being more open, but they want to be closer to that ditch. As you can see here, there's a pretty good pronounced ditch running along this levee wall. Obviously it ends there. You can see, I think I fished that during the tournament. This might be from the tournament, but we can just ignore that. But yeah, I definitely gave this whole area an honest shot. But it definitely seemed like that was a 2-key. So going into the third day of practice, I know there's fish on this contour deal, on this contour deal. I know that there's fish relating to deeper water swings like this, especially there going into the hatchery. Actually, what day was this? 10, now is the second day. There was no fish closer to the hatchery where there wasn't the right contour. It had to be the right contour. And here we go, deep water swing, bite, schooling fish. So the deep water swings going into the shallower water was #1 key. That other spot that I just showed you, the contour lines are a little different. I got rained out, boat soaked, couldn't get the cover on in time. Very excited about that. But going back to the deal, so I had that deep water going into the mouth of the hatchery there. I had one area where I had a bite, so I'm not like super concerned about that, but it did lay out good. The deep water swung into the flat and I caught the fish right where it starts coming up in like 6 foot of water. That's another thing I wanted to mention. At this point, I'm not dialed in on the depth zone or anything. Where I caught those fish at the mouth of the hatchery, that was like 3 to 5 foot, kind of varied a little bit. Closer to where that deep water swung into that flat, that was about 6. And where I was catching those fish closer to the dike wall, that was like 3 or 4. So depth was like, at this point, not the most overpowering factor. But the only thing that one spot close to the dike had going for it is 50 yards away, there was about a 6 foot ditch. So, you know, fish are closer to the deep water there, but they have their ideal cover where they want to feed nearby. Could that have been it? Possibly. So I have those 3 areas, but in that time span of 3.5 hours, I've had 10 bites. Not all of them are keepers, but they're at least close to keepers. So, you know, I'm feeling pretty good about it. So basically, it's the end of day 2 of practice. I have a pretty good idea that I'm probably gonna spend my tournament in Lake Moultrie, especially since what I saw in that big bay. I've got a couple areas. I think I can expand on it. Day 3, I still have a couple of ideas of a couple things that I wanna try on Lake Marion. But before I go to Lake Moultrie, I gotta go do that first, get it out of my head. My initial plan for that day was to go to Moultrie first and end in Marion, but I know kind of how I work. I gotta get that extraneous, the stupid stuff out of my head first before I just go and go double down. Because if I'm doubling down on the stuff in Moultrie and I still got that stuff in Marion in the back of my head, you know, I might pull out too early and just throw myself off. So day 3 coming up. I don't know if this is going to be the same video or if I want to make another video separate for day 3. So this may be a really short video, or this may be a little bit longer video. Probably going to make it a little bit shorter video, but hope you guys like this day 2 of practice breakdown. Sorry I couldn't film, but very important piece of equipment. My SD card was at the house, an hour and a half away, and I was not about to drive back just to get some footage for 3.5 hours of practice. So this is what you got to work with for day 2. Day 3, we filmed the whole time. I'll get that video put together as soon as I'm putting this on YouTube. And yeah, hope you guys like the video. Please like, please subscribe. As you can tell, I've been posting a little bit more regularly. My new lifestyle with not working on the boat has kind of allowed me to get more into the YouTube side of things. Really enjoy doing this. I honestly, truly do. Looking at my analytics now, I'm at 1,749 subscribers. I've gained plus 38 in the last 28 days. I would think that's good. Growth is always good. But yeah, I'm really enjoying doing the YouTube stuff. So if you guys want to give me a little bit more motivation, definitely like the video, definitely subscribe, and please leave comments. I love talking to you guys. And if you guys have any questions, just drop them in below. I will 100% get back to you. And yeah, I will see you guys in the next video.